Right, I think back, and I think we do have the chat. Yes, I can see the chat now. So sorry about that. That is my own stupid fault for the way I set this up. But it is the first time in a while, in my defence, and I am sticking to that one. Now I've lost my questions. Oh, it's going all over the place tonight. But welcome along. Great to have your company. Hockey season is back after a long enforced break, and it's great to see people in arenas and rinks once again. Absolutely great to be back at the rink and watching a game. But like I said before, if you've got any hockey related questions, do pop them in the chat. I will see them here. It should be somewhere on the side there, and I will do my best to answer them, but we have got quite a few questions in, and so we will crack straight on. And the first question comes from Panthers Banter, and he says, do you think the Panthers webcasts will be permanent or just more frequent? For example, it says for the Coventry game on Saturday and no stream scheduled at the moment. And do you think people concerned about attending games has changed their view towards providing webcasts? Excellent question. And a lot to pick apart there. Firstly, from my personal point of view, Panthers doing webcasts has been something I've been banging on about for many seasons. It's long overdue, and I'm glad they're finally doing it. Obviously, the last two games were done on the webcast, so about time. I still think £15 is too much, but it seems to be a league-wide thing. But people are obviously paying it, and that's why they're doing it. And I think, as you say, there are people concerned at attending games. There certainly has been less of a season ticket take-up at the Panthers. I don't know about any other teams, but certainly at the Panthers, looking around yesterday, there was far fewer season ticket holders around me than there was the last time we was there, 18 months ago. So obviously they've got to try and claw that money back from the lost ticket sales or lost season ticket holders, which is a concern. So obviously a webcast is the easiest way to do it. And so I'm glad to see that they are doing it. Like you say, the Coventry game at the minute says no stream scheduled. I guess they'll look at ticket sales, but I'll be very surprised if there isn't a stream for the game on Saturday against Coventry. I think the bigger concern has to be the number of empty seats. It was 4,300, which is still a good, what will be regarded as a good crowd. But I think it's very concerning that there are a lot of long-time fans and a lot of long-time season ticket holders who don't appear to have renewed for this season, which is a big worry. And I think alarm bells started ringing for me regarding that, with the fact that the season ticket deadline was extended a couple of times, which is something that the Panthers don't really do. And I hope that people do come back. I hope fans do come back, but that's a worry. And that is obviously going to have an effect on the budget, and it's going to have an effect on the quality of players that the Panthers can bring in, especially if they aren't getting the revenues that they were in the past. So something to look out for. But the good news for me of all this is the fact that Panthers are doing webcasts. I hope it continues, and I hope it is for every game and not just a regular thing. I guess it's something that they'll take a decision closer to game time when they look at ticket sales. But at last, Panthers are doing a webcast, and I think that is something for us all to celebrate, however late it is. But well done, about time. Another question. Oh, Anthony Russell says, need to be interesting here, John. Now I've got you on one screen and the German election coverage on the other. Ooh, blimey. Well, I hope I'm more interested in the German election coverage. Not something that I have been taking a keen interest in Anthony. I must admit on that one. So next question comes from Paul Price, and he says, how would you manage Kevin Carr's workload? So Kevin Carr, important netminder for the Panthers. Will Curling is his backup. The way I would manage Kevin Carr's workload is I would probably give Will Curling the start on the Challenge Cup games, because once again, I suppose with the absence of Glasgow makes it more difficult, but the fact that you've got 3 groups of 3 playing for 8 quarterfinal spots is a bit ridiculous, in my humble opinion, because you're essentially making 2 groups of 3 pointless because nobody's going to be eliminated. There's only going to be one team eliminated, which just does not make any sense whatsoever. I can't understand why they didn't just go straight for semi-finals. I understand the revenue argument, but give the competition some gravitas, because it's a bit farcical having 9 teams in 3 groups battling for 8 places. It's just daft. But to go back to the question, because of that, and because of the fact only one team would be missing out, I would give Curlin the starts in the Challenge Cup games, so that the 8 Challenge Cup games given to him, which gives Kevin Carr a rest, but also gives Will Curlin some valuable game time as well. Yeah, there's a Rhys Williams. Challenge Cup has really lost its meaning in the last few seasons. Start Curlin in the group games at least. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree 100%. And it also gets the players used to another netminder. Because I think the danger is, and we saw it a few seasons ago, where Dan Green had not had any real ice time and then had to come in after Mick Vietman got injured in the Challenge Cup quarterfinal, and was cold, had no game time, was completely rusty, and Steelers went and scored a load past him and made the semi-final. So I think there's an argument that you need to keep Will Curlin game ready, but also you need the players to be used to 2 different netminders, because they may have completely different styles as well. I know they will train against each other every day, but that's not the same as being in game situations. So for me on that one, I managed Kevin Carr's workload by giving Curlin the starts in the group games of the Challenge Cup. Good to see Reese on, because there's a question that came in quite late from you. Which says, do you think more needs to be done to get the atmosphere going in the arena? Block 19 are great, but the pre-game build-up was pretty lousy yesterday and the crowd seemed mellow for most of the game. Poor for first game. Block 19, I think, have definitely added to the atmosphere. They certainly did prior to the COVID break. I didn't think the atmosphere was that bad yesterday, to be perfectly honest, compared to sort of how it was pre-COVID. Yes, there were quiet periods. I can't really speak on the pre-game build-up because I didn't get in the arena till about 5 minutes before face-off. So I can't really comment on that, as I wasn't in the building. But I thought the atmosphere was okay, personally. I think it's a problem with arena teams, although, because I know there was a lot of complaints from Sheffield fans about there being 8,000 in the building the week before when they played the preseason game against the Panthers, but apparently it was very, very quiet. So I don't know. I think it could just be an arena thing. And I mean, I've been to Belfast and I've found that it can be very quiet there at times. Is it just these big buildings? Me personally, I prefer little rinks because I think the atmosphere in them is outstanding. And I know I bang on about the old Panthers barn a few times, but the atmosphere in there used to be incredible. And places like Hull, places like Fife, just great atmospheres there. I think smaller rinks help. I don't think the big buildings help in building an atmosphere. So I really don't know what the answer is, but I think Block 19 will help and do help in at least getting a bit of atmosphere going. James Kenning asks, should TV replays be used during games to assess penalties where injuries have been sustained? Absolutely, yes, they should. I do 100% agree. There was an incident in the game yesterday between Panthers and Dundee where Karatsa had to go off after getting injured. Obviously, it looked bad, but it was given 2+2 for high sticks. could have been a headshot, so I don't know. But the officials spent an awful long time in a huddle discussing that penalty before deciding what they was going to give. If the technology is available to look at that things, then I think they should be able to use it. I've seen it happen before. At Friendship 4 in Belfast, there was a potential headshot, and the officials came off the ice to do a review to check if it was a headshot. So if the technology is there, I think it should be used, especially for something like that, where it could be, possibly a bad injury or possibly a bad check. Why not use it? It just seems to make sense to me. You've got the technology there for the goal line. Use it for things like that if you can. I can't see why you wouldn't. So yes, I do think TV replay should be used more often than they probably actually are. I know it's difficult to install the technology because I would like to see offside as well, which they did do in the Elite Series, of course. Whether they could be called or whether they could be challenged, but I suppose that's further down the line. But if the technology's there, use it. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't. So yes. Scott Ancliffe, my good friend, he has asked a couple of questions. He says, stand out so far. I've only really seen 3 Panthers games. I've seen the preseason games against Sheffield at home and Cardiff at home, and then yesterday's game against Dundee. For me, and I'm sure there's a few Panthers fans on there, if you disagree or you've got any others, please pop them in the chat. But for me, I would say Kevin Carr's certainly stood out. I think he's been excellent. He had a very, very good game yesterday against Dundee. I think Boyvan and Deming have picked up where they left off from the Elite Series. They have done brilliantly. Of the new players, Taylor Doherty in defence for me stood out. He made a play yesterday actually where he lost the puck and just came back and won it back again. I was very impressed with that. Really battled hard. I like the way he skates. For me, the absolute standout though is Simon Soranta. Just watching him, he glides beautifully. His passing is phenomenal. Needs to probably work on his finishing because I think he missed a couple of really gilt-edged chances yesterday. But just watching him, you can tell he's played in the Finnish Liga for the last 9 seasons. He is just absolutely on point. Brilliant player. Very, very much someone who I was looking forward to see after we signed him, and I've not been disappointed with what I've seen so far from him. So they are the players I would see. Anthony Russell, stand-up of Morgan Clark-Pizzo. Yes, apparently he's been banging the points in for Peterborough. Of course, on a 2-way with the Panthers, which is good to see him start really well with the Peterborough Phantoms. Kelsall, great on Peter. You know what? Jordan Kelsall has really impressed me from what I've seen. He has. I've really noticed him, and he seems to have improved greatly since we last played in a proper elite league. But yes, he's someone who I have noticed a lot on the penalty kill, but also he made some great plays yesterday. I think he almost scored in the first period. So he's another one who has stood out for me. Rhys Williams, Boyvan and Deming look to be adapting very well to a proper EHL. Yeah, I think Deming looks very good. I think Deming will score a few goals. Morgan was awful in the Phantoms game in Basingstoke. They lost 6-0, but the switch appears to have flicked in his head. Speed to burn, such a fun player to watch. Yep. If he's half as good as his father, he will be one hell of a player. I think I think we all know that. Scott asked another question. He just says increasing ticket prices. After everything that's happened and the fact that teams have had virtually no income for 18 months, I think an increase in ticket prices was inevitable. It was something I was expecting, to be perfectly honest. Increases are never nice, and nobody likes paying more for things. But I think with the situation and the way things are, can you really blame teams for putting up prices a bit to try and recoup some lost revenue? it's been a tough 18 months for everyone, and hockey teams are no exception to that. So while we don't like paying higher prices, I think in this case I can understand why, simply because the income just hasn't been there. So I think that's why the ticket prices have gone up. I suppose the thing to look at is next season 22-23, if they go up again, and by how much by that's when it could start getting where people start saying it's maybe a little bit too much, but we shall see what happens there. Greg Hewish, Cardiff fan, says, after watching pre-season and the first weekend's games, do you think the new roster sizes will affect the quality of games or not? That all depends on injuries, I think. Absolutely all depends on injuries. I still think that the rules are bizarre. And I wrote about this in one of my British ice hockey articles, where I just don't understand why. One, the roster sizes weren't made to 20 players, so we could have 4 lines. I just don't understand why that didn't happen. And also the 14 imports, 5 Brits thing, which I know 14 imports is a maximum, but most teams are going to go with their full maximum imports, which leaves less opportunities for British players. The fact that teams will have to play 3 and a bit lines, well, at the moment, because rosters are new and fresh, it's not going to make much of a difference. As the season wears on, though, and if some clubs do start getting a pile up of injuries, is there going to be a problem? Because you're going to have teams with players playing probably 20, 25, 30 minutes for a player, and if they're sort of going down to 2.5 lines, yes, that will probably affect the quality, because you'll have a lot of tired players, which then has its own problems in causing more injuries because players are fatigued. So I think that's something that will probably be to discuss better maybe 2 or 3 months into the season, Greg, and see where we are then. At the moment, it's not making too much of a difference, but teams are mostly fully fit and have fresh new players in. Let's see what it's like in a couple of months' time, when we're a few games under our belt and probably injuries are starting to take an effect. And of course, with the roster changes, with the amount of imports you can bring in over a season, that makes a big difference as well. So we'll see how that comes into play. Next one comes from @hockeyfans654321 on Twitter. And he says, Fife, Manchester and Coventry look really poor so far, especially Fife and Manchester. Do you think there's going to be a bigger gulf between the top 4 or 5 and the low budget teams this year than there has been recently? We could see a lot of one-sided games, in my opinion. Well, Coventry won 2-0, albeit against Fife on Saturday. Fife didn't have a very good weekend, but I think it's too early to say, really. Until I've seen every team, it's very difficult to sort of give an opinion on them. I mean, you can only go by what's on paper. I think Coventry look decent on paper. I think they'll be looking to try and carry on where they left off in 1920, when the season was brought to a halt, because they were in fantastic form. And in CJ Mott, I think they have an excellent netminder. Dundee were very good. Dundee were excellent yesterday. There's always a dark horse every year in the Elite League of a supposed lower team who comes up and does really, really well. And I think that team could be Dundee this season. They really impressed me yesterday. They were very entertaining to watch. Very different. Very different. So, no, in season 19/20, not the year 1920. Nice one, Tommy. I like that. I'm sure you know what I meant. Very well organised at the back. They certainly were, and I think Adam Morrison had an excellent game in net. Feistiness about them as well, which we've not seen before, and was sort of unusual from an Omar Pasha style side. But I really, really enjoyed yesterday's game. Really enjoyed it. a really close game of hockey, and I was thoroughly entertained for the whole 60 minutes. So, yeah. So Dundee, I think, will be a dark horse. But going back to the question in hand, I still think it's unfair to say if there could be a gulf between the top 4 and 5 and the supposed lower budget teams. We could see a lot of one-sided games, but like yesterday, a very, very close game between supposedly a higher budget team and a supposedly lower budget team. So, again, another one that probably, let's have a look at that one again, probably 2 months into the season and see what the results are panning out like. I think that would be the fairest way of looking at that. But I having not seen the teams, I can't really say that any of those teams are poor. I can't really say if any of those teams are really good either, because I've not seen them. Until I've seen them, I can't really give too much of an opinion on that. And I know that's sitting on the fence a bit, but I like to deal with facts rather than just giving an opinion on teams that I'm not really seeing. Dumfries Hockey News and Scores from on this. He says, I've seen a few variations of this. What's the best way to tweet goals? I.e., goal 3, Sharks 55-55 and doesn't mention the other team. Or goal Sharks 55-55 and doesn't mention an actual score. Or goal Sharks 55-55, Sharks 3, Warriors 3. And the last one, I think, is get as much information in as you can. For me, who scored, time of the goal, and the actual score at the bottom. I think as much information as you can get, but concisely. Yeah, always include the score in the tweet. Totally agree. There we go. So hope that answers that one for you, Dumfries. I like to deal with facts. John O'Bullard expelled from running a British ice hockey. Oh yeah, I don't think I ever was in the running to run British ice hockey. Or if I was, one, I wasn't told, and two, British ice hockey's in big trouble. Right, let's move on. A couple more questions. If you've got any questions you would like to put in, then please do pop them in the chat. Gemma Stanley asks, what do you think to Caitlin Berry joining the Premier Sports match coverage team? I think it's an excellent move by Premier Sports. Caitlin knows her stuff. She is incredibly knowledgeable about the sport. And I think it's a great addition to the broadcasting team, along with Murph Adey and Chris Ellis. So well done to Premier Sports on bringing Caitlin in. Someone I've met a couple of times and spoken to a few times for various articles. I did an in conversation with her, actually. She's very, very much focused on the OHL in Canada. Really knows her stuff about that league. An incredible source of knowledge about the OHL. So I think bringing someone like Caitlin in, it's a fresh face, it's someone new, and it freshens up the coverage. So I think a really, really good move by Premier Sports in adding Caitlin to the broadcasting team. So I think it's a fantastic move overall. I've not seen the coverage yet because obviously I was at the game yesterday, but hopefully we'll catch a few during the season. So look forward to watching the games on Premier Sports. Final question comes from Neil Smith, and it's quite a serious one. Some of you may have seen this, some of you may not, but he asked that your thoughts on Andre Denskin's gesture towards Jalen Smirek of Donbass in the Ukraine Hockey League. For those that haven't seen it, there's a pretty awful video that's been doing the rounds on social media. Andre Denskin of Kremenchuk of the Ukraine Hockey League made a gesture towards Smirek, who's American but is also black, and the gesture was of peeling a banana and eating it, which is pretty abhorrent. I think we would all agree on here. My thoughts on this are, I hope he gets the book thrown at him. I think an example needs to be made at him because it's 2021 and these things are still happening in sport, and it is not acceptable at all. Personally, I would like to see him probably given a life ban. Talking has got to stop now and action needs to be taken, and things like this cannot be tolerated. And I think a message needs to be sent now. And for that. And it wasn't spur of the moment. He thought about it. If you watch the video, he thought about what he was doing. So he was, it's awful to watch. And I think he needs to be made an example of, and I hope he gets a life ban from the game, because we don't need that. And talking has to stop. We're seeing too much of this sort of thing creep into sport. You only have to look at what happened in Euro 2020 final with the abuse that was thrown at the likes of Marcus Rashford, etc., after the penalty shootout. It's not acceptable. It can't happen anymore, and it has to stop. And sanctions have to be swift, and they have to be fierce, and they have to be long. So life ban for me. No other. I don't think any other punishment is acceptable. He knew what he was doing. It was an utterly racist gesture. Bye-bye. Don't need that. And that's really all I've got to say on it. That's my thoughts on it. What would he say? Emotions in hockey are unfortunately different. No, they're not. What you did was terrible and wrong, and you deserve the strictest punishment available for it. And that's really all I've got to say on that horrible incident. So, any other questions before I finish? We've been going 26 minutes now, so just pop any other questions in the chat. We'll hopefully get these on weekly again as time allows. I'll probably mix it up between YouTube and Twitter Live. But if anybody's got any questions throughout the week, don't be shy. Pop them to me on Twitter at John O'Bullard. DMs are always open, so if you want to send a DM, you'll always be welcome. Glenham, going back to webcasts, do you think Clan and Flames might join the rest this year, or are they going to blame poor tech for not doing it? The Flames poor tech, that's not that is actually genuine. The Spectrum has a very, very poor internet coverage. Because of the way the building is designed, it's very difficult to put in. I've worked at the Spectrum, not on ice hockey, but in the gym next door. And we had to take 4G boxes to try and get a signal. And even then, it was quite weak. It was just enough to get a stream going. So the technical issues at Guildford are absolutely genuine. It is very, very difficult to send, to do a webcast from there. Unless you completely, I think they would have to spend a phenomenal amount of money to get it up to speed to do that. And your return on investment is probably not going to be paid off. So the chances of that happening are probably slim. Clan, different story. With Panthers going to do webcasts now, and with Clan being owned by Neil Black as well, I would hope so. I think they'll see what sort of ticket take up they're getting and season ticket take up. But I see no reason why the Clan shouldn't do a webcast. Guildford with such things in mind, true, but I think it was built in the late 80s, wasn't it, when the internet wasn't even a thing. So you can't really say that it's their fault either. What is that? Well, given the popularity of the Washington Capitals having a team puppy, and not something I've seen, should the Panthers have a team cat? Why not? Mind you, I don't know where it's going to live. It's a bit cold in the NIC on lower ice level, so it probably needs somewhere warm to stay. And who looks after it when they're not playing? Who looks after it in the off season? That's a sort of question. Any more? Because we're coming up to 30, and I will end it around then if there's no more questions come popping in. Okay, so hopefully will be on next week after the weekend's games, work permitting. And I'll try and get these on as regularly and as weekly as I can do. Also, the Cat's Whiskers podcast, we had a double podcast yesterday, one before the game and one after. Go to the website, www.thecatswhiskersonline.com. Go to podcasts, and they are both there for you to listen to and download. Okay, many thanks for joining me this evening. Thanks for popping the questions in the chat. Pleasure to have your company, and it's great to be talking about hockey with crowds back in the buildings once again. I will hopefully see you next week. The game Panthers won in Sheffield last week. I heard a young Miss B as a Connolly fan. Thoughts? Yeah, it's not. Well, it's gone down well with two people in this household. It's not gone down with me, especially as she got a cuddly bunny with a Brandon Connolly shirt on yesterday. I was not happy. Apparently, Michelle Smith picked that one out for us. So if Michelle is watching at any time, I need to have words with you about that one, I'm afraid. No, as most know, I am not much of a Brendan Connolly fan, and I think 6-year-old daughter picks up on this and tries to wind me up as much as possible with it, bless her. And I believe she's ordered a Brendan Connolly shirt as well. So, still, at least I've got something to start the fires with on bonfire night. So, every cloud and all that. Anyway, you all take care, and I'll hopefully speak to you again next week. Bye-bye.